Welcome back to the PPC, everybody. We've already done NA, and that means we're over in Brazil. Dolson and Goremizer for Gore, what should be a good matchup between Fatal Ambition and Carnage Gaming.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this. Fatal Ambition has been one of those teams that, I've said this, I think, a few times every time we come to Brazil, but it's one to keep your eye on, right? They've just been rising up to the occasion. They haven't necessarily broken through some of those tough teams that we see at the top, like Parallax, but Carnage is someone that's a little bit more in boxing range, right? Like, it's a team that you could feasibly take down and have it be in the realm of possibility.
Well, the standings will sort of tell a lot of that story as well. Parallax up top at 6-1. Of course, that one loss was due to maybe some outside circumstances that 1 week, but it is a loss nonetheless. Carnage Gaming still trying to play catch up here to keep pace with Parallax, very tough team. Fatal Ambition in 4th place down at 4-3. So if they're able to win this one, they would end up jumping up tied for 2nd place, depending on how In Control does this week. But let's jump into it, Goro. Let's see how these teams are going to break down. Let's see where we will head for map number 1, and Jaguar Falls will be our first destination.
And you know what? I'm happy to be able to go here. For a while there, it was just gone. Like, people didn't get to go here too often. We didn't get to see it competitively. And granted, it's coming at the cost of Frog Isle and Bright Marsh that you see down there in the ban screen. But I think this is one that, again, much like in my mind, I would say Stone Keep, it kind of is a good showcase of your skill. This one, though, a little bit more leniency. You can kind of pick anything and make it swing in your favor. Bomb King's still very big here. And with the way things have been going, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these teams maybe try to push him towards the top. But Brazil, the one thing that has been true in the past few weeks is that they do love their IO. So I expect to see her either banned or picked almost every single step of the way.
Yeah, picks and bans, always interesting with Jaguar Falls, especially over here in Brazil. You know, it's always been that Team Clarity, King Kaiser conversation around the Moji. But even outside of just here in Brazil in the PPC throughout last year, if there was going to be a Moji, it was always on Jaguar Falls. So I think that's maybe somewhere or maybe an opening that one of these two teams could find here on Jag Falls. Vivian banned out, followed by an Eevee and a Rom there for Fatal Ambition. I think that's something I've gotten used to seeing here in the PPC, maybe in Brazil specifically. Eevee Rom seems to be a favorite combination of teams that don't want to deal with some of that insane mobility from the Eevee.
Yeah, I think that's realistically what it is. Eevee can control a lot of the fight, and when you give them to the right players, Eevee just controls the game and can absolutely shut down your backline, so get rid of her. Rom has been the interesting one because some teams are still in that let's ban him because we don't want to deal with him phase, and some teams are like, well, you know what, we can just outright kill him, so let's just let him through. We'll deal with him the old-fashioned way. But the biggest thing for me in this one, I mentioned the IO. The last, 3 weeks, I've had to talk about how she's over 90% win rate. Finally, after last week, that's been chunked down. Still 74, so it's still high. But she's losing games, Dave.
Yeah, that's all you can ask about the opposing teams. Let's take some games off the IO. Still a great win rate, 3/4 of the time winning those games. And Carnage Gaming is a team that does a lot of winning here in Brazil. So a good match there. Moji as well will come out here on Jaguar Falls. Wondered if maybe one of the two teams would reach for Moji, and Carnage Gaming will. Now, Bomb King and Barrack, that's a good duo here for Jaguar Falls, Gore. I mean, talk about space control in the Bomb King. Barrack as well, one of the strongest point tanks right now. And then Tyra, 3% pick rate. So I'm not at all going to say we've seen her a lot. But with the Firebomb, can control some space of her own as well.
Yeah, I actually think Fatal Ambition have a really solid draft for the map so far. A lot of control that comes to it. And while I think Io and Moji are going to be able to strip some of that away, that all comes down to more performance space. Like, Fatal Ambition can kind of let the champions play themselves, let them breathe a little bit, and it just flows well with the map. You throw that Firebomb, it's going to work on the map. Bomb King controls the zone on the map just because of the way that it's structured out. You don't have to do anything special for it. You do still want to pop off and find those kills, but it's not maybe going to be as difficult as finding the right angles and getting those shots as the Strix on the other side.
Yeah, and that's such an important topic I kind of want to look at as well. The resurgence of Strix here over the last few weeks has been incredibly noticeable, I think. Teams moving away from just Strix on kind of these very specific maps and kind of back to maybe where we saw him a little bit last year, where mid to short range, depending on how quick you are, to long range confirmable damage tends to be good Carnage Gaming are going to round out that draft now with a Xin. So solo tank Terminus, Moji, Strix, Xin for the 3 damage dealers with an Io as the lone healer there. What do you make of the Carnage Gaming draft?
Man, I like it, but again, there's a lot of like little dependencies how this Moji does. Granted, it's a lot of guys that have been able to play at this level, or sometimes even better in the past. So Carnage Gaming like kind of flexing around a little bit, maybe not too surprising, but it does put a little bit more weight on their shoulders to make this work.
Well, can Carnage Gaming keep pace with Parallax up top, or will Fatal Ambition instead be the ones moving themselves a little bit closer to that top seed? Jaguar Falls for game number 1. Some interesting compositions that should be a lot of fun to watch. I think my eyes have to go towards this Strix here for Carnage Gaming, Gormizer. I love the Xin pick. I think Xin absolutely a champion that we've seen work plenty here on this map, but the positioning for the Strix, I think, will maybe be the most interesting.
Yeah, that's the one that is always going to catch you off guard. This is not a map known for long lines of sight, for great sniper angles. There's a reason you don't get to see them too often here. So Gervin has his work cut out for him. That being said, there are a couple of players my mind goes to what people would maybe remember as Valentine in OCE. This is years ago. More people would probably recognize him under the name Ninim when he played for Kanga there for a while. That is one of the players that I've seen make this work. It is not something that is unheard of. It is just something that is incredibly uncommon that has it come through. But he's got a bulldozer to help King kind of keep control on this Barrack and this Ying. And if he has the right angles along with this Moji, it's a good 1-2 punch.
Yeah, Spexy is going to try to counteract a lot of what the Bomb King is going to be doing for Fatal Ambition, controlling sort of this close room off to this side of the point where BK is going to try to move in and find some space control of his own, and that's Vindo who finds first blood here. Scooter immediately down, so Fatal Ambition off to a great start. Ares just plugging away some damage into the backside, but Spexy returns the favor, and Carnage Gaming pull one back, and maybe they're even better for it. They lose first blood, but now it's Fatal Ambition who are staggered out, and Carnage Gaming are the ones moving themselves in towards the point.
And now that I've let it rest a little bit, I know one thing I'm really excited to see is specifically the flares from this Strix. Imagine revealing the team in a position where all of a sudden Moji can use that information to get in there and try to shut down this Bomb King. Because a Luminary Bomb King on Jag Falls, that's a priority target. That is number 1. Vindo has to get taken down.
Well, first blood is all Fatal Ambition have to hang their hat on. After point number 1, Carnage Gaming move forward and pretty much secure the rest of it from there on out. And you know, we've kind of talked about these champion scores, individual pieces, but you look at what a Terminus brings to the table and what Scooter's job is going to be here, playing a little bit separate right now, but it's this, the Ares follow-up from behind that power siphon, so potent. Any of these damage dealers from Carnage Gaming play behind the Terminus as some are now, and the dominoes are just going to fall. Fatal Ambition left with only their 2 healers left, and Carnage Gaming, they look near unstoppable at the moment.
Well, it's also the concept and the reason why IO is just so potent. Hey, what's Terminus doing? Oh, he's fighting Bomb King point blank. He's making sure those bombs are sucked up by that power siphon so that nothing can come out of them. That allows Spexy to go around the side or Ares to go around the side and create a flank route that normally would be an incredibly dangerous place to try and poke into. But now you've got a bodyguard in front of you, or at least near you, because he doesn't have to worry about the point.
Well, it's time for a defense here for Fatal Ambition, and they've got a long time to do it. Ares will try out a kill on a not PS1. The respawn's slightly closer here for Fatal Ambition, so this is going to be a great defensive stand. Clean up 3 members of Carnage Gaming. But there's still so much time left on this clock, Gore. I mean, 1 minute and 8 seconds left. You look at Snack Time, Be Gone, Flashbang. Some of these big, important pushing ultimates potentially for Carnage Gaming still coming up and will be on the table for maybe 1, 2, 3 final chances at a push.
Yeah, I think if you want control, I mean, throw out a Flashbang, throw out a Be Gone on this part of the map because it's an easy kill field off the edge of the map, and you can absolutely find yourself, well, back on top of that payload and potentially pushing it forward, especially once Bomb King is gone. It just makes it so much easier. Yeah, he's going to be able to respawn here and be right at the defense, right at the payload, but that's 10 seconds you don't have to worry about it.
That's a big 3-man stack on the right-hand side here for Carnage Gaming, and they're going to move it forward. Be Gone sends one flying off the side of the map, so that's good for an execute. Vindo back off the respawn will get a kill down onto a Spexy now. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but Carnage Gaming, they'll get rid of the frontliners, and that's all they need, and they will roll in the payload. And they only used to Be Gone, so now you move into the second mid-fight, and Carnage Gaming are in great shape.
especially having something like Snack Time, Spite, but more importantly, keeping hold of your reanimate. There's never really pressure on Carnage Gaming to drop something like that, but Scooter having that, it's just going to make it so much more difficult now for Fatal Ambition. I mean, that was already a rough round, most of the kills ending up on the Bomb King, and again, Luminary Bomb King on Jag Falls going even is kind of a sign that he's not doing as well as you really want him to. It's rough to say that when everybody else on the team is negative, but you need something to kind of pick up as the carry. The two healers right now don't seem to be hitting as hard or healing enough to withstand the damage that Carnage Gaming is outputting. So you have to change your approach to this fight and maybe hope this Dome Shield and 2% for Barano is going to be enough to settle things, at least for a little bit.
And there is some priority on Bulldozer, notably for Fatal Ambition. Tends to be important when playing against an IO. Spexy has found a flank around the backside here. Ares, though, will chop down Vindo, but not before Cool will get one back on a Scooter. So that's the lone tank for Carnage Gaming, but that won't dissuade any of the aggression from Carnage. They'll move themselves forward, but PS1 will gun down a Spexy over in the front line. But look at the work this Luna is doing, Gore.
It's the classic one-for-one trade. You kill our tank, we'll kill your tank, but we technically have a second tank, at least in one Fox form, and she's going to sit here happily being able to control this point.
Well, Reanimate might secure the point for Carnage Gaming. Spexy's gotten a kill on a not PS1. Scooter is just going to try to move in and touch a toe down, but Reanimate right back into damage. That's tough. A Snack Time tosses out. I'm not sure he was able to find any, or Spexy was able to find any kills. Dome Shield down, but expires, and the time that'll buy comes to a close. Overtime is on, but Fatal Ambition are the ones in control. Spexy tries to dash away the self-sustain here, enough to keep Moji in the fight. Now it's Ares who's going to dash forward on this Zen, and he's controlling the space so well. Vindo around the right-hand side, headed, and Vindo combining for a couple of kills. Marino, he takes a tumble now, but can a Spexy burn down these low-health targets for the time? The answer is yes. And he touches a toe in, and Carnage Gaming grab point number 3.
I want to say equal parts talent, equal parts luck here from a Spexy and staying alive through that duration. I mean, there are so many times where it's just, you make it around the corner just in time that no shot is going to connect with you, and then you're using your toot, you're using your magic barrier just in time and kind of rotating their cooldowns perfectly enough that you're not in any true danger. Your health bar is fluctuating between full and a fourth, but you're never really stressing out about dying until maybe you get into a moment like this in a 1v1 with a Bomb King.
Scooter is going to try to power siphon himself alive here. It's really been so much of Vindo, really, hasn't it, for Fatal Ambition? That's kind of, I mean, they're down 0-3, but it kind of kept them in the game. It's the space control and the damage that Vindo has been supplementing to his team that's even made this remotely close, I would argue. I think PS1 has found some good damage and some good kills as well. What do you make of what you've seen out of Gervin, though, up to this point? I think we had a good conversation about Strix and maybe where he stands. Have you seen what you've wanted from him?
I think because the team is able to be as aggressive as they are, it lets them play a little looser than you would get. I mean, if you switch this Strix onto kind of where Fatal Ambition have been on the defense this entire time, it doesn't get to look good. It doesn't get to be flashy. It doesn't get to, you know, find some hot shots and then set up a Spexy or Ares for kills. It's just falling back constantly and trying to figure out how do we get back into this. But because they have so much pressure and so much space, he just walks up like this, either behind Terminus or behind the Moji, someone with a barrier to block for him, and he just gets some free plug damage in from the backline. Well,
it's PS1 that was in the backline of Carnage Gaming there, and throws out the firebomb, but maybe overstayed his welcome and ended up not finding much for it. The stagger will expire for him in the next 3 seconds. It took Carnage Gaming a little bit longer to get to this point, Gore, but here we are nonetheless. 8 minutes in, almost on 4-0 here for Carnage. Some good ultimates ready to go for them. Illusory Wrist starts off for Headed, but that's one of 2 healers that's burnt down. The flank from a Spexy is paying off big time, and PS1 will be the recipient of a double kill. Barino has to throw down the Dome Shield just to buy a little bit of time here, but Ares is swinging away. Gervin looking for a plug shot, finds one onto Barino. King Bomb not available, 10 seconds left, maybe used just a moment ago, but Vindo will find some kills nonetheless. Through time and space, flies through the battlefield, and it's Scooter who does end up going down. Reanimate is saved. Carnage Gaming, they'll move themselves to now game point on another mid-fight.
That's one it's such a tough call to make because the safe call is exactly what Carnage Gaming do, right? Hold on to your ults. You use what you could and it didn't quite work through. Don't use something like the Reanimate because of how massive it could be. Instead, pull back and just let them have this point, right? They earned something at least, and it's the defense here. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, you have control, you have Gervin still getting some kills, the pressure is still mounting. You might have been able to stagger it out, tag in, and get that reanimate off. Also could have been the timer dropping right before you actually stand back up and wasting your ult too. So it's just like, there's so much at play there. I like that Carnage Gaming do play it a little safer, even if it does mean that, well, maybe they're playing with their food a little bit. Fatal Ambition have a lot to change coming into this. And Dave, they don't have a lot to do it with. They have no ults available, and none of them are even near coming up. And while they have, like you highlighted in last round, a couple of those bulldozers now at tier 2 and tier 3, that's not going to solve all of their problems. It's only going to solve one, I would argue 1/6 of them from Carnage.
It is a very costly 1 on the scoreboard for Fatal Ambition to the tune of most of their ultimates. Illusory Rift will be the quickest charging and will get itself up. Flank from Ares, pinched in though by a Spexy. Headed won't get any more time to charge up the Illusory Rift as First Blood in this mid-fight rings out for Carnage Gaming. Crimson has fallen down in the meantime as well. Scooter has reanimate, but maybe so early on here he won't use it. Instead, he waits for the timer to go down, reanimates back on the backside of this fight, avoiding as much of the stagger as he can. Fatal Ambition, they've gotten some good percentage on the point here thanks to the fast gap, but look at the flank, and this one's paying off in dividends.
I mean, it's just damage on damage on damage from a Spexy here, and again, it's just the Moji right now. Snack time goes a little wide, Ares goes down. That actually might be a big window for Fatal Ambition.
That's a double kill for PS1. Scooter, no reanimate, and Headed will find some revenge for an early kill from Carnage Gaming. Fast cap with 58%. Carnage Gaming, maybe one last chance to get back into this one. A Spite will be ready to go if they're able to move themselves in. Ares dashing through, Void gripped up, but ends up touching down. That'll start the overtime if need be. Spite not charged, not connecting. Vindo with a double kill, PS1 with 1 as well. This is looking like a great mid-fight for Fatal Ambition. Looks like the damage dealers have finally found their footing in this one. And against all odds, Fatal Ambition secure the mid-fight and now have a chance to tie the game.
And there's a few ways to slice this one, but realistically, I think that's Carnage Gaming's point to lose. Yes, there's comeback mechanic and maybe a conversation to be had there. Fatal Ambition, charge their ults, use their ults the way that you should in a point fight like that. But Reanimate didn't really gain much for the Terminus. That second life was not necessarily forfeit like we see sometimes, but didn't really do anything either. He was kind of just left to do his own thing for, what, another 30 seconds, and then he died off. Didn't see too much out of the Be Gone, and that snack time going a little wide. Maybe a kill right there, switching that over for a Spexy, changes the pace of the game. So a couple of misusages, I would argue, from Carnage, making it a little easier for Fatal Ambition to come through, because as we see now, the payload's not moving too far, definitely not going anywhere fast. So Fatal Ambition are going to have to figure out how to break through this one.
Well, it's far away, but if we've seen anything here on Jaguar Falls today and in the past, it's that payloads will move quickly once some of the defensive dominoes fall. And that's Scooter now most recently on the front line, who will die off here for Carnage Gaming. Can a Spexy finish off some kills here? It'll make it a little bit more difficult for Fatal Ambition to put in. But Fatal Ambition are able to stay alive. One traded out onto Cool, but Headed will complete the kills over onto Ares. So you only lose one in the meantime, and it's one of your two healers, and you get some good kills on a Carnage Gaming. Things looking good now on this Fatal Ambition push.
And I would also argue it's one of the ones that you can afford to lose because he doesn't have to run the full way back to be effective, right? If you're looking for a Luminary boost, it goes through walls and you have range cards to allow you to hit that even further. So you can dismount a little sooner than you would normally as a healer and still apply that to make sure your team is able to keep going. Unfortunately, they lose Ying, who does still have that Illusory Rift. They have the ability for Fatal Ambition to maybe get aggressive and go as hard as they want on this push. I think you slow down just a little bit here, mainly because you're not given much of a choice. Everyone's staggered out now.
Yeah, this is where Carnage Gaming can really make their stamp on this defense. Remember, no point to gain. They'll have to capture the mid-fight rather to win this game and avoid it going any further. Fatal Ambition still a chance though with 15 seconds left. We saw defensive spending though on ultimates from Carnage Gaming. They, remember, had the reanimate, had some tools to maybe end the game, elected not to do so, and that's usually the first thing we see. A pick onto Vindo now may dictate which way these ultimates go, and I think it'll be tough now for Fatal Ambition to move in and get this one converted.
I mean, you're already fighting a 4v5, but you lose who has been one of your top performers in the game. Then you lose not PS1, who is pretty much just second only to the Bomb King right now. It's definitely not looking good.
Wow, a Spexy triple kill, and I mean, unfortunately for them, it doesn't mean all that much, but it does secure the defense. And that's a microscope on what a Spexy has been able to do this game. 28 and 16 on the Moji. Not top damage on the team, though. I mean, you look at what Ares has done. 14 kills. Gervin, 6, 2, and 13. So the confirmed kills largely for a Spexy. But it's the other two damage dealers for Carnage Gaming that have jumped out about 15 to 20,000 ahead.
And honestly, that's the way this comp is built. I mean, Gervin's not looking for the kills. If he starts off and hits a headshot, cool, that's 1,800 damage. Spexy, go clean it up. Just be the janitor for the team. And just, pick up the trash that's left behind after they deal all the damage. It's perfectly fine for him, especially because it draws a lot of attention. When Moji runs into you, you look at Moji. You're not looking at the sniper who's doing the real work behind the lines. So maybe something that PS1 Vindo need to look at is trying to get back there. Deal with Ares, deal with Gervin. Even though Spexy just got the triple kill, maybe let him go for a little bit.
Well, Gervin had to drop down the flashbang just to stay alive. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but Vindo and Barino make it a 2-for-1, and Carnage Gaming off to the races. Ares will chop down not PS1 as well, looking for one more. It's an unofficial triple for Ares here in this mid-fight. And just now, the respawning Vindo back from base. Carnage Gaming still some tools to maybe defend this one and win the game.
Fatal Ambition, though, have the Dome Shield. Great at being able to rush in, slam it down, and just stall on the point. But that King Bomb's going to be important, especially if he can get something out of it.
Oh, and he deletes Gervin, but can he stay alive? No, says Scooter. Spexy looking to defend. Dome Shield drop down now from Barino. Carnage Gaming look to maybe step off, but instead they're trying to get aggressive on this Barrack underneath his own shield. Cool-headed, both combining for some damage here. Barino gets melted down by the flame throwing at Spexy. Overtime is expired. Can you move forward and touch a toe onto it? Vindo has to drop down and reset overtime, but the kills are in favor of Carnage, and the dominoes will fall with Carnage Gaming on top.
I mean, that's just, I don't even know where to start with the amount of damage that was coming out. There was a point where I saw a full health Bomb King, and then he was gone. I saw full health, well, anybody on Fatal Ambition, and then they were gone, and that's just, I mean, what are you going to look at? You're going to look at the Zen damage, you're going to have to look at the Strix damage, and even though it was lesser, still third damage in the game, Moji's being able to come through. So much burst potential on this team that, I mean, even right there is just a perfect example. One sniper shot plus one hit from Moji for a lot of these targets just equated to a death, let alone adding in Zen's factor into that. So having all three of them corner you is just maybe the most uncomfortable spot to be in as a DPS or a support for Fatal Ambition.
And this has been the story of Fatal Ambition against, top 1, 2, and 3 teams here, where they absolutely take some points off. Can't quite get it over that finish line, though, and a team that will look to build on some of those points and really convert them into some wins over the big teams here over in Brazil. Spexy, though, I mean, 20 kills, I think, is where he was going into that final mid-fight. Added a few more down the stretch. So Carnage Gaming has found a composition that seems to work for them. And you look at this roster, I mean, with Ares and Gervin and Spexy, there's enough flexibility there to provide compositions like this good use. 18 and 8 is where Ares finishes off. Nearly 2 players, both above 20 kills. And as sort of mentioned, Gore, was really Vindo who is doing a lot of the killing for Fatal Ambition, 15 kills, but also 15 deaths on that Bomb King.
I will give a lot of credit because even though he was able to go through, top damage for his team, he just, again, goes even. Not PS1 had probably the biggest turnaround on that team, though. From round 1 and round 2, it was very slow pace for that. Tyra didn't get to see too much out of the firebomb, didn't get to see too much out of her damage. And then that third round, she just came through and was absolutely decimating people left and right. So it was a really good, solid play. If it had been maybe a little more consistent, it could have resulted in something different maybe earlier on in the game. But at the end of the day, it still didn't kind of be the playmaker you needed.
It didn't quite work out there for Carnage Gaming in map number 1. We had so many conversations on the triple DPS. I think the IO, a massive factor in that one as well. Another map where IO can work and have seen her work is certainly here on Stone Keep. While the map structurally, of course, is pretty different to Jaguar Falls, similar playstyles could be there if Carnage Gaming want to opt for triple DPS and picks and bans. Grab that IO early on, move her down onto the point. We're just going to have to see what direction they choose to take it, though.
Oh, and this is one of my favorite ones to watch as well, because there's so many different ways to tackle Stone Keep and different approaches that can still win you the game, even though it is a completely different style. And sometimes we see teams go for the kind of like, winner take all. Maybe we'll have one that's a keep composition, one we go on to the other side. Maybe we just play the point. But some teams lean real hard into it. And, if I'm looking at Bomb King doing well last game, well-ish, this is another map that I think he can, easily shine on. Strix as well, maybe not as common, but something that can shine here if, in the right hands.
Well, the bans, and I don't really anticipate these changing all that much throughout this set. I mean, this is kind of the controller versus, PC ban set, I think, that we're used to seeing, where your Fatal Ambition, you don't want it, we mentioned it, picks and bans for game 1. I don't want to deal with this Moji, her high mobility potential.
Let's go.
Rom, maybe fills I don't know, you can't call him as mobile as Eevee, but similar woes maybe for Fatal Ambition. But then on the flip side, Vivian, Talus, both incredibly powerful, for controller players. So Fatal Ambition maybe not wanting to play against that. That's what the Crossplay League brings, potential for these different bans and metas to form depending on what team you're playing against. Io, though, locked in for Carnage Gaming. I love the pick. Paid off in dividends in game 1, and they're going to return to the Io here in game number 2.
Yeah, realistically, we've seen her win rate tank, but it hasn't tanked enough to say, yeah, she's not good. She still is very solidly in control of it. And honestly, unless something changes drastically, I don't anticipate Carnage Gaming have too much issue, at least around the Io. And for a lot of it, maybe not the totality of the draft, they could tend to run it back. I mean, honestly, in Brazil, it's even risky or not risky, as it would be in like North America or Europe, to potentially just run back the Moji on Stone Keep, even though I normally wouldn't say, hey, go for it. This is one where you could make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. There will be some change in mindset, though, with the Strix being picked up here. Maldamba, 7% pick rate, but an 80% win rate here in the PPC. A healing champion that has seen some success in the limited number of games played. Why do you think Fatal Ambition maybe move to Maldamba here in their pick bans?
I'm wondering if they want to still pick up something, but I think it's just the synergy that comes with Inara, right? You could still flex into a Genos, you could still flex into a Ying if you want them, but double support didn't do much for you last time. Maybe this time you just look at pure healing. How can we try to keep up with the damage that they're going to put out? And Maldamba does a little bit of that. And then you could maybe factor in some Swift Spirits. I like giving a little bit of speed to my Bomb King, a little bit of speed to my Victor to help them get into position a little bit better.
Well, Androxus and Maeve, a mobility duo that Fatal Ambition won't be thrilled about going toe-to-toe with, especially if my line of reasoning is correct with, some of the Eevee bans that we've seen here. Certainly hard to lock down an Eevee, but also hard to lock down a Maeve and an Androxus. Buck, though, rounds out the draft here, and Gory, your big thinking man vibes right now. What's caught your attention?
I like Fatal Ambition's draft more. I think Carnage Gaming it's hard to argue against them. One, out of performance-wise and what they have in terms of Andro Strix, that 1-2 punch is going to be ridiculous. I'm still not in a comfortable position to ever bet against Io in Brazil because she was at a 90+% win rate for so long. And the control from Carnage, I think, is going to be much higher. But I think the line of execution is much higher. You can't make as many mistakes, right? Your threshold, you slip up once and all of a sudden it falls apart for you. Whereas Fatal Ambition are playing something that is just tried and true on Stone Keep. It is a really solid draft. It controls, again, all aspects wherever you want to rotate it in. And it's got a really good conversion rate for it in terms of being able to kind of seal that payload push.
And in this case, I think it's a good thing, but not taking risks really with their composition are Fatal Ambition. And again, I think that's a good thing. It's tried and true. You know what you're going to get. Can the Victor outpour enough damage? Can the Bomb King control that space? Well, we rarely see the answer to those questions being no. So Fatal Ambition with a chance to bounce back on Stone Keep. But also the risk that I think Carnage Gaming have drafted here is maybe outweighed by the high potential that both the champions they've picked bring. I mean, you see a Maeve pop off. That's something Ares can absolutely do. You see an Androxus kind of go crazy. Those games are so difficult from the losing end just because of the nature of those champions. So I think Carnage Gaming as well have a good composition to start off. To start off, though, it's going to be Crimson moving down, drop Luna onto the point. The big answer is, can Fatal Ambition answer back some of this IO potential, and no, Barino walks forward and Ares tosses some daggers in for first blood.
You know, the hardest question of this game, it's not going to be how many kills can Bomb King get, or how well can this Buck clap back against the damage that is Carnage Gaming. It's all coming down to how well can this Moldamba heal in comparison to the just immense amount of damage, almost ludicrous amounts of damage that Carnage Gaming are going to be able to deal. Dave, I've got bad news. There's a reason he hasn't been in the top 5 healers played lately, and well, it's because he's just going to have a little bit of trouble keeping up with what Carnage Gaming are dishing out.
I mean, this has been one of the slower mid-fights I've maybe ever seen, and it's just been Barino kind of walking forward with lack of healing and or return damage for Peel. Carnage Gaming stand on the point for a minute and a half. No, that's a lie. It's Luna that sits on the point for about a minute and a half, and Carnage Gaming, they roar out of the gates to the tune of 1 point. Now, Fatal Ambition, they need to convert this high ground advantage into a defensive stand, but this payload's moving quick.
Yeah, realistically, and this is the unfortunate thing for Fatal Ambition. I'll be honest, I'm starting to get tired of talking about Luna. One day I might just have people auto-ban her, just be like, guys, for this week of the PPL, just don't let any Luna through, for me, more than anything, than for you. I'm trying to save you. But it's just, she brings so much to the table, and it's very simply, hey, she's a really good healer, and also, she brings you a literal point tank to come in and supplement something instead of like a Barrack or an Inara on your team. And while you might not get their really nifty ultimates and maybe some of the stuff they bring, like Inara's passivity and being able to soak up healing, you instead get the ability to 5-man fight any engagement you want. You have an off tank, you have 2 flanks, you have this DPS, and you still have Io herself dealing a lot of damage. It's just so difficult to deal with and overcome.
And Gervin will finally end up falling here as Carnage Gaming suffer one of their first and only casualties up to this point. I mentioned that high ground. That's where I now see Headed starting to find some damage. The tried and true nature of this Victor hasn't quite been there up to this point in this game, and I think Carnage Gaming, really most of the credit due to them, as they've kind of dove this high ground effectively, prevented Barino from moving himself forward. Now look to do more here with 50 seconds left. PS1 goes down, a midnight aggressively for Carnage Gaming now on this push. Don't end up finding much for it. Still 5 seconds left on the respawn, but turning around some damage is Vindo and Headed. Spexy will find a long-range plug shot, but it's a high ground for the moment, Gormizer, that's standing strong.
Oh, it's going to have to hold a little bit longer. They just lose their healer, they lose the Victor as well, and yeah, you have a King Bomb that's rolling around, but it doesn't seem to be accomplishing too much while the kills are still coming up blue.
Oh, Barino knocked back and taken low, and Vindo and some healing from Cool Up on the high ground is really all Fatal Ambition had. And then they crumble, and Carnage Gaming roll it in, and now they're up 2-0. The brakes have not really been put on at all from Carnage Gaming. And talk about long-range confirm. I mean, we've seen it in Victor, and that's a lot of the conversation we've had around him. But also the medium short-range confirm has just been there. Carnage Gaming have played this composition perfect.
I mean, it's where do you want to fight? Like, if you're Victor, maybe you're tracing the line, the back line that is, for Spexy. You want to deal with that Strix. You're one of the only people who has the range to do so, and if not PS1 can get back, or if he cannot get back there, you don't have your Buck getting to sit on the sniper, then kind of up to you. Oh, well, that means now Ares or Gervin on either the Andro or the Maeve are sitting on top of you. It's just so difficult to decide who to look at, and while Victor, I think on his own, could 1v1 any of those champions and potentially come out with a win, trying to fight 2 or 3 of them at a time is just not going to work, and that's what Carnage Gaming have, a draft that overwhelms you more than you can deal with.
Well, Barino has felt overwhelmed, I think, since the onset of this one. Maybe with Gervin going down, a little less pressure on the front line for Carnage Gaming, and Carnage Gaming have converted a small advantage into a few kills. Flashbang hits down on the not PS1. The restore almost saving some life there, and just extends out a little bit longer. Luna being healed up, Barino can't do much about it. That's a small moment that really shows you exactly what this Luna brings to the table. Has to burn the wall just to save his life, but now Barino's going to get off the table. Cool takes a tumble here. Low health bars across the board for Fatal Ambition, but Vinda will find a double kill now in this fight. A stun down on the not PS1 will set up a nice shot for a Spexy. And now with 84% and climbing, Carnage Gaming are in the driver's seat.
And soon enough, you're going to have another stun ready, but well, hey, you're not even going to need it. That's something I think that, you know, I glance over a lot when I'm looking at Io, just because of all the things that she does. Hey, a stun on top of it just Whew, it's too much to deal with. But anytime you're watching her perspective, just watch on the bottom left because you will see that little charge bar for Luna. And every time that comes up, much like it is now filled with purple, that's just a free stun. That's going to be something that should equate to a free kill, because if you're within range of that stun as a Buck, as a Bomb King, as a Victor, but specifically as a Zanara, you're just going to immediately have damage dumped into you.
Well, speaking of that, that's a barrage, but only plugs away some damage. Doesn't actually confirm any kills here for Fatal Ambition. This is dangerous. Despite the payload still being somewhat far away, there's a slight stagger on the table right now for Carnage Gaming if they're able to push the issue a little bit more. Barino dancing back and forth, but a couple members from Carnage Gaming will round the corner. Crimson finishes off. Cool Scooter is the one who finally gets it done. The front line of Fatal Ambition has crumbled here, and they don't have healing for the next 3 or so seconds. The stagger is complete, and Gormizer, so is the game. Carnage Gaming in 4-0 fashion roll it in and complete Stone Keep.
And this is normally where I would go on a long rant about all the things you could do to maybe slow them down, but there's not a lot in-game you can do. You have to pull it way back to picks and bans, and it's just, look at the lesser of two evils. You can deal with Eevee, you can't deal with IO. Ban the IO, slow them down that way, and then try to figure something else out, because otherwise it feels like it's just slipping away through their hands faster than they can even get into the game. I
agree. It just feels like this juggle of target priority from Fatal Ambition that has led to these games being a little bit quicker, a little bit more in favor of Carnage Gaming. I mean, right off the bat, Luna goes down onto the point, Barino walks forward, and nothing else from Fatal Ambition. Barino dies, and Carnage Gaming walk their way to their first mid-fight. Same thing happens in the second. You know, it was kind of unstoppable there from Carnage Gaming. And I don't disagree with your point. You know, as far as like a well-rounded draft goes, I liked what Fatal Ambition had, but Carnage Gaming had that potential, especially if you don't really know what to do playing around that Luna.
And that's the question of equal playing field, right? I mean, they just overwhelm you with damage. That's what Carnage Gaming have a draft for. Khan can move forward with a Maeve, Andrew can go on the side, and you got a Strix in the back line. You're getting hit from 3 at least different types of damage at any given time, and you don't have anything to answer back. You can't control it. You can't slow it down the way that you need to. You don't even get to kill the healer in Crimson. So slow them down the only other way that you can, which is don't enable a composition like that, as difficult as it is. If you ban the IO, they have to have something in place of her to come through, right? A different healer, but then they also have to maybe flex onto 2 off tanks or at least 1 point tank to try and make this triple DPS still work the way that it did.
It's headed at 7-5-1. That is the only remotely attractive slash line, I would argue, for Fatal Ambition. 10-2-9 for a Spexy. The Strix hitting its mark. I mean, we could run down that entire list. Everyone from Carnage Gaming doing their job in that one. Some good healing as well from Crimson. Tends to happen when you're undying. 45k to the 49,000 of cool there for Fatal Ambition. Outside of Luna, which is massive in the IO conversation, Gorshi also has the potential to pour out some good healing through some of these games as well.
As it turns out, she's just pretty good, and usually when you see someone performing at that level, especially as consistently as it has been in Brazil, she tends to gravitate up towards those top bans. Right now, the IO, the ROM, if I'm Fatal Ambition, I'm throwing out, I'm sorry, the Eevee, the ROM. I'm throwing out the Eevee ban, picking up the IO ban, let those two be it, and then deal with whatever comes your way.
Right, if you're not going to be first picking the IO away, you maybe need to change something up here if you're Fatal Ambition in the picks and bans. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll see if Fatal Ambition maybe has some changes and can maybe push us to a Game 4. Thanks for sticking around, everybody. Game 3 between Carnage Gaming and Fatal Ambition is just over the horizon. One map screen, picks and bans away, but this is been a lopsided matchup, Gore. I mean, map number 1, Jaguar Falls, we're drawn out a little bit. Fatal Ambition has some good fight back, but a little bit worse on Stone Keep as the IO problem continued to grow here for Fatal Ambition. Bazaar, an interesting pick, a map that we haven't seen all that much, maybe still caters to an IO pick for Carnage Gaming if left available.
Yeah, honestly, what should have stood out to me earlier when I was looking at the map bans was the lack of Bazaar. Normally it gets tossed down there just because it is one of those maps that's a little more difficult to figure out. A very large point fight, as well as it's not the easiest push in the world. It's good for defense. There's a lot of little angles you can hold. but it's how you tackle this map more than anything. A lot of teams have had trouble figuring out what is the ideal composition. Honestly, I couldn't tell you what the ideal composition is, just because it is still kind of in that, I don't want to say Wild West area, like Fish Market, where yeah, whatever you want to run, you can make it work. But it still has some of those aspects that, you know, yeah, if you want to run a point tank, that's going to give you solid control. But what are you going to do about the balconies on the side? How do you control it? Do you want a sniper? Do you not? There's a lot of flexibility for your team in this map.
And there's flexibility kind of in your mindset as well. I think as much as you can draft, and maybe obviously should draft around the mid-fight, because you have to win those in order to win the game. As far as picks and bans go, you can also maybe overemphasize a push, because this is one of the harder maps to push on. Very linear. There's kind of one route that you can go to make it in to the defending team's base. So I agree. I think mid-fight kind of mentality maybe comes first, but maybe some champions jump out at, well, maybe we need some help on this defensive stand. And on the flip side, maybe this is a map where you feel a little bit more comfortable defending as well.
This is high mobility flanks coming to my mind, just because when you're looking specifically around the push, they have the ability to jump over those pesky gates that don't open for the opposing team. They only open for whichever team is defending there. So you have that ability to kind of jump into the back line and cause some disruption there. But again, I go back to it because the first few times we saw it, you know, last year in the PPL, it didn't happen too often where we would see a sniper get picked and then it'd be successful. But teams have slowly figured out how to make that work a little more. I think the one that comes to my mind was Mutu playing Kinessa, and it didn't quite stand out the way as we've seen Strix this year kind of step up to the plate. So things like that are in the realm of possibility. I also, you know, we've seen Lex work here specifically in Brazil, and he's the only one that I mentioned just because it is Brazil. It is something that they are maybe used to going. Talus as well is on that list. And because Talus specifically has a little bit of movement speed in him, throw that rune of travel down, all of a sudden it's a little easier to control the underside of those balconies and keep a level playing field around the point.
Well, there's so many, I think, viable champions on this map. We're going to have to wait and see for picks and bans and see what these teams really lean into for Bazaar. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, picks and bans just on the other side. Appreciate the patience, everyone, and picks and bans. Now, on your screen for Carnage Gaming, Fatal Ambition game number 3. Now, Gormizer, the talk of the town, the talk of the set has been, does Fatal Ambition change their mindset, maybe move towards a non-EV band, an IO-centric band for the time being? The answer is no.
Well, one can hope, but so far we're not seeing it. At least one EV coming through, and based on track record, it seems like, yeah, Rom's probably next thereafter. So maybe, yeah, they can try to steal her away, take that IO and strip it away from Carnage Gaming, and then hope they don't know how to deal with it a little better than you. But a lot of the reason we saw her win rank tank was, you know, I think it was Parallax going up against someone last week, where Parallax were more than willing to let it through. A couple of these teams more than willing to let it through if they think they can beat it. And, well, if they have control of the set like this one, it maybe still favors Carnage.
Oh, 71% win rate being put to the test. And, you know, I think it's an interesting conversation to have, because obviously Fatal Ambition, very, very good Paladins player. So I don't think it's outside of the, like, they don't know how to deal with it. I mean, that's kind of a heavy maybe swing, and a phrase I've said as well. But it's so hard to deal with. It takes very specific play style maybe to kind of counteract what the IO is bringing to the table. Are Carnage Gaming comfortable enough with what they've done on an IO to play against it effectively is the big question here. Strix and Ash will be the spearhead for what Carnage Gaming bring to the table on Bazaar for game number 3. Khan, though, now the point, or a tank, I suppose, off tank locked in. I like the Ash pickup, though. I think she's seen a drop in play, but when we have seen her, it's looked decent.
I do like what they have in Retaliation, though, and this is something really solid for Fatal Ambition. Khan able to maybe deal with the Ash a little bit better, maybe able to bully his way back to the Strix. Andro being able to kind of control the skies more than anybody on this side, all while IO helps capture the point. Again, Fatal Ambition, everything working for them. It does come down to whether or not Carnage are going to be able to fight against this composition in a way that isn't all in on one champion, right? It's not just, hey, can we kill Andro, or hey, can we kill Io? It kind of follows a pattern of, okay, how do we deal with whatever like is in front of us, the biggest threat on the board, and then tack it down one by one.
And Knessa, Gord, you brought up Knessa on Bazaar as a Bazaar-specific pick here. So a sniper battle in game number 3 between the Strix and the Knessa. And Lex, hey, another champion you brought up as maybe fitting in here on Bazaar. Andraxis, Knessa, Lex. That'll be the triple DPS trio that Fatal Ambition bring to the table for game 3.
It's going to be difficult to overcome, but if Strix is hitting his shots a little more consistently than Knessa, he can start swifting, or I should say changing some of his damage more in favor of the Andro, maybe onto that Lex. It'll be easier to hit Andro since he'll be dashing around up in the air anyway, so you can maybe try to take down 2 birds with 1 stone. But it does depend on that sniper battle at the very beginning, their positioning, what they have around them, how much priority they get. And sometimes, you know, as we've seen in the past, who gets that first shot?
Yeah, that tends to pull a lot of weight in these duels, and Carnage Gaming, as far as the set goes, has been pulling most of the weight here. A new jam will bring us into Bazaar for what could be the final game here in set number 2 of the day over in Brazil. Carnage Gaming have not been slowed down, Gormizer. It was somewhat slow on Jaguar Falls. Not slow at all here on Stone Keep, and now here on Bazaar will be the final battle. Early bulldozer pickups, though. That's obviously the itemized answer to that Luna on the point, and Spexy, Scooter, and Crimson will be the ones picking up the bulldozer first item overall.
And there's a way to look at it in a way that they aren't necessarily sacrificing too much to get there, right? I mean, it's 150 credits. You have 0 at the very beginning here. So Ares, Gervin going to be able to hit that Cauterize 2 before the rest of their team. But having that potency now means that you could just shift some of your pressure onto that mid-fight and potentially find a good kill.
Ares poked his head around the corner for half a second. PS1 was able to put him down. Headed gets the better of a Spexy as well. In the sniper battle, Barino will chop down Scooter. Fatal Ambition, the best start we've seen from them here today. 3 members of Carnage Gaming back on the respawn. And Gore, the high ground is kind of forfeit here. Carnage Gaming are trying to fight back in. 90% already on this point. Can Ares get a touch? For the moment, the answer is yes, but is over time going to give Carnage Gaming enough time to get back in? The next question that maybe needs some answering.
They're going to have to get rid of that Lex first, and hey, that's exactly what they do. That might give them a little bit more room to operate in. There's so many targets to burn through, and you just lost your healer.
Yeah, Crimson is down for Carnage Gaming. Fatal Ambition right back maybe to control of this mid-fight. Brino chopped away by Ares from behind. That's Headed, who will teleport away. So Carnage Gaming are able to stabilize despite missing a healer. And now it's Fatal Ambition that are in trying to retake.
Well, they're going to be able to hold on to it, but 99%, it's difficult to overcome. But one of the things I said about snipers on Jag Falls way back when are true here as well, which is, hey, when you have control of the point, it seems great. But if it starts to slip away, it's difficult to get back in there, especially when you are finding yourself in the same scenario as earlier. 1 shot from Strix, 1 shot from Ares, and you're gone.
That's a Void Grip and a Flashbang to take down Vindo, and it works here. A Be Gone used by Fatal Ambition. PS1 will get a kill on a Gervin, but Gervin was so far out ahead, it won't matter. And Carnage Gaming, they go down big to start off this mid-fight. Fatal Ambition had a brilliant setup, but then the retake was just a little bit better from Carnage in the now second retake attempt, but Fatal Ambition were not able to convert, and Carnage Gaming strike first.
And this is where I think things will get more interesting for Spexy than anybody, because what angles are you going to play as a sniper, right? Like, where are you going to be able to stand, especially knowing that Lex, should he live long enough to get to you, it's going to cause a pretty thorough problem. But it seems like the team is kind of playing bodyguard there, and Ares is able to get aggressive and maybe open up this payload push a little bit more for his team than you really expect out of a lone Zen.
Yeah, the answer of how do you really effectively push on Bazaar is, well, being brought up here, and Carnage Gaming are just kind of melting everyone from Fatal Ambition. The one-off tank in the con has not been able to stand strong against this push just yet, but is now this next moment, this final turn. All of Carnage Gaming are going to be funneled into 1 point here, Gore, so maybe this is where Fatal Ambition have the best chance.
Well, they're getting a lot of good damage off early on. That is a trade that you have to be very careful with if you're a Spexy, but also, I would argue anybody getting caught in the scope of a Knessa, especially at this point where she's going to be able to sit back, have a pretty decent long range of sight onto you before you can really fight back. It's going to make it a little more difficult, and with Luna being able to contest this, this minute that they have left is going to be a very highly contested minute.
Flanks and counter flanks, but PS1, it's just a Void Grip. And then a turnaround from Carnage Gaming to put down the Lex. So 5 seconds of a 4v5 here for Fatal Ambition. Vindo in on a flank of his own. Scooter moves forward. Dome Shield ready to go, but Cool caught a bit out by Ares and Scooter as they pinch in on Io. So now back for 8 seconds on that respawn. Barino back behind the shield, chopped down by Scooter. Payload slowly rolling itself in, and this one's going to go in. Fatal Ambition, they delay things, but delay is about all they have. Carnage Gaming will go back-to-back and go up 2-0.
And if you're wondering that, there's just a sequence at the end there that showcases why Ares and Xin specifically is so good to have against something like a Kinessa, or realistically against anybody, but here I think it affects Headed more than anyone on the rest of Fatal Ambition. It's just cool. He's one hit away, and, well, he throws up that counter. So that shot that you just fired that was going to kill him all of a sudden gets reflected elsewhere. Oh, and now Billow's up, so he's going to be able to walk away. Even though it's gone through nerfs, he still has enough survivability, just enough, to be able to make things more difficult for you. And if you don't kill him the first time around, that's when he becomes just a thorn in your side. He comes back. That's the worst part about Xin. He is always going to come back. And he's always looking for more, and maybe you didn't get to heal up the same way he did, so you're in more danger than you were before.
And what a set it's really been for Ares here today, not only in Game 3, but I think Ares has looked great throughout the first 2 games as well. Void Grip, oh, the Commander's grab canceled out, and Gervin is able to stay alive. Elsewhere in the mid-fight, Ares has gotten rid of Vindo, who's piloting the Androxus. Haven't seen much of Androxus in the kill column just yet. Carnage Gaming move in. Discrepancy once again. Fatal Ambition on the point first, but it's Carnage Gaming on the retake. A Spite will connect down onto Barino, but healthy enough to stay alive. Cool coming to the assist of his frontliner. Overpower in to the assert dominance, and that'll get rid of Gervin. Scooter's cleaned up PS1 elsewhere. It's a checkerboard of kills. Carnage Gaming, though, they're the ones garnering that percentage.
That's 2 for 2, but there is no Luna as of right now on that payload, or on that point. So it's causing a little bit more trouble, and you get rid of Vindo, and it becomes a little bit easier to turn that 75% at least into a 90.
Somebody shoot this Strix. The Spexy has not been dealt with. It's Lex now up on the high ground that's going to try to find some presence. Be Gone sends one flying, but will they get the kill? I don't think so. Back goes Cool, but a Spexy is there to finish off the kill. Overtime on. Fatal Ambition. 4 members on the retake, but they crumble under the pressure as Spexy's hitting his shots and a double kill. He's shooting bodies, and Carnage Gaming, they could roll their way in for the win.
Honestly, you know what? There's so many things to break down that maybe, if you tweak this as Fatal Ambition, or you tweak that, or change this, or approach it at this angle, you can't just outplay somebody like that. I mean, when you have a Strix that is kind of going, I mean, the best way to do it is maybe focus him down, but nobody was able to shoot him. No one was able to really get back there because you're trading one evil for another one, right? And right now he's on a 17 streak with an Immortal happening in that one. And it's just that moment of, okay, cool, I'm going to pinch Kinessa with one shot, hit the Io with one shot, hit Kinessa, then hit the Andro, keep them all perpetually at half health. How are you supposed to fight into that? And when a Spexy's on fire like this, the answer is you just got to outshoot him, and that is very difficult to do right now.
Yeah, I would argue at this point, if Fatal Ambition are trading 1 for 1 and it's not onto a Spexy, it is not worth it. The Strix has just been tearing up the front and back line of Fatal Ambition up to this point. Crimson as well has been on point with the Void Grip, setting up a few of those now 17 affected kills. Top damage in the game, as if, there was ever any doubt around that one. Now, Carnage Gaming are slowed down, though, Gore. This is, again, that area where we expect Fatal Ambition to kind of dig in those heels.
Well, Carnage have Flashbang, maybe not the end-all, be-all of ultimates to close out a game, but through space and time, as well as now 77% on the Assert Dominance, something to keep them aggressive, get them in there with the Dome Shield charging up right behind it. A lot to hold this, and in a minute, you'll charge those up, no problem. With one big opening kill, question is if you'll need them by then.
Yeah, Gore, I don't know if Fatal Ambition have the legs to keep things where they are. Carnage Gaming have them staggered out. 3 members of Fatal Ambition just now. The Kinessa respawning, a rare missed shot from a Spexy, but Crimson will turn around thanks to some extra pistol damage as well. And Cool will end up falling. Can he hit the final shot on the And Droxus, that's dashing behind. That's a good commander's grab over onto Scooter, will be sent flying. 20 seconds remaining, and it looks like Fatal Ambition have maybe finally found some kills to give themselves a good shot on this defense, but there's still 15 seconds left.
Well, at least some good healing coming out from Cool right now to be able to keep things going. Be Gone ready, as well as an Overpower. If Ashe uses that Assert Dominance, you have the ability to yank her out one way or another and maybe stop her from getting that immunity, but you have to be careful with what you're playing with. It's fire right now with where that payload is.
That was very, very close. Scooter nearly had that one rolling through. Luna was in range. Carnage Gaming are just going to dash themselves in, and it looks like Fatal Ambition have found their footing. Granted, just for a point, but they've kept the payload from rolling in, and we'll get another look at a mid-fight, and another look maybe at a mid-fight. If it's at all similar to the first couple, Gore, it's going to be Fatal Ambition gaining control off the bat, Carnage Gaming playing a little bit slower, and then that second wind of fighting has just been Carnage Gaming time and time again.
The difficult part for Carnage Gaming here is going to be how to play around the Overpower. Specifically, can you force Barano to use it early, and then you just slip your way through, use your Assert Dominance happily, or is he going to hold on to it? And, well, the answer is probably the latter. 2, 8, and 9, they're looking for one thing and one thing alone, and that is stopping you from being potent. But again, that is let Aspexy go 11, 2, and 9. So maybe Gervin's willing to kind of dive on the grenade if it means that his DPS can have such a stellar game. Especially now that they have all Bulldozer 3s, you're not really as worried about IO. Even with comeback mechanic, that Luna is not going to be as big a threat to you.
It's kind of a game of chicken, really, between the Assert Dominance and the Overpower. Will one hold on to their ultimate to avoid being caught out by the other, or will a team fight dictate something else? Right now, it's Carnage Gaming are on the back foot. This time, though, Fatal Ambition have themselves a much larger lead, thanks to that fast cap, 62%. But time is being bought here by Carnage Gaming. Can the front line stay alive? Can Scooter remain in the fight? And he is able to. Some good healing from Crimson, but nobody takes a touch. I'm half expecting a refight, but Fatal Ambition push back Carnage Gaming, and nobody's able to move themselves in.
And that was just well-timed, because I hear that Overpower come through. It even whiffs, and I'm like, this is the opening for Gervin. But not if you can't get back there in time, whether it was him or someone else that needed a touchdown. You know, you can leave that up to I guess, Carnage to figure out. But at the end of the day, he was in a good position to potentially try and ult in and stall things out. They just needed, like, 2 more seconds. Not even a full 2 seconds. Maybe just 1 more second of time. But unfortunately, I think there was just enough pressure from Fatal Ambition, especially with that Overpower coming out. It might have whiffed, but you're forced to dodge it. You're forced to get out of the way. Whether or not he hits it, he accomplishes what he needed to, which is no one is touching this point.
And now Carnage Gaming are going to have to keep themselves on the defensive stand. Will go to a tie game if they are unsuccessful. Gervin, Assert Dominance, will stun down 2. It's beautiful positioning there. Can they finish off the kills? The answer, at least for 1, is yes. And now 2, Fatal Ambition are likely to be heavily staggered out here. It's only the Khan who's left alive, but still mounted back from base. Great start to the defense for Carnage, and they're going to draw the line right back near the mid.
Yeah, that's just a hard stall at any point in time. I mean, you buy yourself 30 seconds easily with that kind of kill. Now Gervin, even though he kind of trades his life for it, dismounts a lot of people there at maybe the 40% line as they come across. So you're pretty solid in terms of zone. And as long as no one sneaks through, which there's not a champion on Fatal Ambition to me that screams sneaky, you don't have to worry about that payload until maybe 30 seconds, realistically, and you're going to be able to respawn by them.
It was the best resurgence we've seen from Fatal Ambition today. Can they better their best score from today? Remember, 4-2 is the closest we've seen so far on this set, and Carnage Gaming can still close it out 4-2 if they're able to defend here. Fatal Ambition looking to force us to a 0.7, though. Ares will get rid of Vindo. That's a great start to another push at defense here, and 3 members down for Fatal Ambition. With 15 seconds left, Gore, maybe we're just looking at get those last couple of ultimates charged up and save it for the next mid-fight.
I mean, yeah, at this rate, you're just like, cool, Assert Dominance, it's a 60%. Can we try to get a little closer to that 100? Those are your goals, right? Otherwise, you have your Dome Shield, you have your Spite, you have your Flashbang, and you have at least 1 more fight to prove yourselves and take this set if you're Carnage Gaming.
This is the Assert Dominance that keeps the defense where it's at. Beautiful. Locks down 2, and the rest of the team is there to capitalize on the kills. you kind of sense Fatal Ambition in that moment, just dashing through and let's stagger ourselves out fully. Barino, tough game, 3 and 10, 13 assists granted on that con, 4 and 11 for Vindo as well. A couple of the members of Fatal Ambition have been heavily targeted, whereas Headed has been pulling a lot of weight on that Kinessa as well. Second highest damage in the game, but Gore, that's still 40, 50K behind what Aspexy's been able to do here for Carnage. His Strix has just been near unstoppable.
Yeah, it has been just a thorn in their side. It stopped their streak, though, so Aspexy still has to kind of build back up to where he was. And this round's already starting out differently in the fact that Carnage Gaming haven't given up a full kill as early on. Gervin goes down, so does Crimson. That's 2 clean ones for Fatal Ambition.
There is no fast cap here, so Carnage Gaming not as sad necessarily about losing a few members, but they are able to trade back a couple. Now Barino will try to shoot down Ares and is successful in doing so. But look at the delay that Scooter has had on this mid-fight. Despite a numbers disadvantage, Carnage Gaming still on the point, still gaining percentage.
I mean, and still just overwhelmingly in control. Now you have the Law. It's a great counter to that Dome Shield if you can get the kills in it, but as of right now, they're not looking towards the Barrack. They get kills left and right. They get rid of the Strix, they get rid of the Genos.
And maybe you need to be looking towards this Barrack, and Headed does so. Luna down on the point will be the percentage gainer for Fatal Ambition. So a good fight back. Assert dominance down onto the Beacon, but it just pins him against the wall. Commander's grab for Gervin, but he's able to walk right back into his immunity ring there and stays alive. PS1 mounted up, rejoins the fight, execute down onto Gervin. No more Ash here for Carnage Gaming. Scooter's going to have to get it done. 99% for Carnage. Overtime is on. PS1 dueling now with Ares. Counter is up, dashes through, but Ares stays alive. Spexy finishes off the Lex. Barino, half HP, down onto the point he goes. Looking for Scooter, lurking around to the corner, but Strix is now going to move to within melee range, finish off some of these final few kills. Carnage Gaming find a way to get it done and take the set 3-0.
Aspexy I think he just got a promotion after that game. I mean, that was just clean overall. There are a lot of those moments where, especially even at the end there, they don't happen without that Strix having the play that he's having. So I think brilliantly done from him just in terms of mechanics, but from the team being able to kind of adapt and play around that. A lot of the success early on and at the end there were that Strix Zen combo. And even though it was kind of missing in the one round, Fatal Ambition are able to turn things around themselves a point. It comes back together when they need it to. I mean, it's just difficult to argue with the 16-4 and 15 slash line more than anything.
14-6 and 14 for Scooter on the front line. I mean, talk about a multifaceted approach. I mean, if you look at Ares, Gervin, Crimson, I mean, Crimson, you know, maybe immune from this conversation because he had tons of assists, but Ares and Gervin, they absolutely did their job, but a bit rougher in the slash line category. Scooter and Aspexy, talk about front line, back line, had that in spades, and hey, they were able to deal with that IO. That 71% win rate kind of goes by the wayside.
And, you know, it's really unfortunate that this highlight started with it, but Barona's the one to look at on the other side. Unfortunately, the con just didn't get to stack up. The damage number, the slash line, and when drawn in just parallel to the Barrack, it didn't quite hit as hard. And a lot of it has to do with this. That's now twice we've gotten to see Aspexy just slaughter everyone that was in his scope, and it kind of was pretty consistent. Again, there was that little middle ground, the one mid-fight Carnage Gaming lose on Bazaar there that didn't quite go the way they wanted it to. Every other mid-fight, even their defense, it was just all red on the left side of the kill feed.
What do you make of Ares this set as well? I mean, I think it's good to throw him some highlights there towards the end.
Yeah.
Ares, you know, you might argue the biggest name here on this Carnage Gaming team just because of the, you know, the exposure he had over the last year in the PPL. I think today, you know, again, despite the KDA on paper not being, you know, massive 14, 4, and 15, whatever, you know, I think he played his role perfectly today, and I think it was kind of a bounce-back set for Ares.
That's the one thing that Ares has always been able to do well. It's not necessarily, hey, you're the star player. And you know what? That's fine for him to not be the star player. I think you see the same thing I do. Parallax Gaming, I don't know what In Control Nation have, but they have the kryptonite.
Yeah, 3-2 over Parallax Gaming, a team that had only lost once prior. And It's In Control who are going to serve Parallax their second loss here in Brazil. How does that affect the standings? Well, we have effectively a three-way tie. There is a massive plus-minus differential, though, between Parallax and In Control, 15-6. So the losses that Parallax have had, I mean, that one's a one-map loss, and I think they're one prior. If I'm remembering correctly, Parallax lost 3-0 their first time around. So that one's a little bit wider. But if you look purely at wins and losses, Gore, Brazil, a region where we were saying everyone's just been playing catch-up to Parallax, is now neck and neck in the top three.
Yeah, a lot of it is going to come down to those map differentials, right? Being able to, like you said, find 3-0s here are more important than ever. And now, honestly, if you're In Control, you want to take that first place spot, it's kind of out of your power. You beat them twice. You did your job.
Right.
It's going to be, can Carnage Gaming take at least a map off of them or a few maps off of them? Can they get a win off of them? Can some of these other teams step up and maybe knock them down a peg as well? Those are the things that make a difference in the standings here. And honestly, with the way they performed today, I think Carnage is just as much in that conversation as anything, because they're only 3 maps behind. All you need is a couple other teams to maybe knock them down a peg there for Parallax, and you do take first.
Remember, these standings ever so important. We're closing in on that June time frame where these teams are going to come together, compete. So the shuffling of these standings more important now than ever in Brazil, neck and neck in those top 3 spots. That was Brazil, though, and it's Carnage who were able to end this set on top. Right on the other side of a quick break, we will have Flashpoint up against Sang, and that's a 2 versus 3 matchup over in NA, so stick around.